Have you ever wondered why some people can get exposed to mold and they develop debilitating chronic health problems, and other people seem to be able to live there for years, or they just go about their life having exposure after exposure and they seem to be completely asymptomatic. They don't really have any problem whatsoever. This is a question that I get all of the time because one of the most important parts of recovery from mold illness is a strict avoidance of moldy environments. And people always tell me, but it's everywhere. It's in the mall, it's in the supermarket, it's at the gym, it's everywhere. How am I supposed to find a house to live in that's safe when all of them are contaminated? And there are loads of other people that live in these environments and they're completely fine. They don't have any problems. It's a really good question. And I don't think there's a fully concrete answer, but I think that the answer comes down to what's going on inside your gut and the composition of your microbiome. So if we can take a bit of a deeper dive into this, not only is it going to help you understand why are some people able to handle exposures and not have symptoms, but it's also going to help you understand a really important angle that's going to help you recover from mold illness. So my goal by the end of this video is to not just explain and elaborate on this topic, but actually give you some practical, actionable steps so that you can take something away from this video without having to think too hard to figure it out. I'm literally going to give you the answer. So you don't have to figure it out by yourself. I'm going to help you figure it out. So just quickly, my name is William. I had mold illness. I've made an absolutely life-changing recovery. Now I have the opportunity to work with other people that have mold illness as well. And I very often work with highly sensitive individuals, those that try things like the Shoemaker protocol, or they follow Dr. Campbell and take the itraconazole, and they do all of these different things, and they still feel terrible. They still have symptoms. They still have bloating, autoimmunity, and they still want the answer. They haven't given up yet. They're still looking for it. These are the people I tend to work with. So I have a really unique angle and opportunity to have the experience in that I work with the people that the conventional treatment options don't work. So this means I'm really interested in trying to figure these more complex problems out. And this is where I came to the conclusion that the microbiome is the key missing piece in this. And there's actually more and more data coming out. I've seen several studies recently showing or making claims and demonstrating that not only can the microbiome metabolize and break down different types of mycotoxin compounds, but also other things like even like heavy metals and plastics and pesticides and all of these other different things, but specifically looking at mycotoxins today. So not only can they help break them down, but sometimes the body will develop a dysbiosis where it looks like we have like a gut infection, but it's actually an adaptive response. It's the body in its unfathomable intelligence shifting the microbiome into a presentation that looks like an imbalance, but is actually adaptively helping us to detoxify and to clear or to remove these toxic compounds. I see this all the time, most especially the key areas. So these are just some keywords for you to listen to if this sounds like you. Very often people that have had mold exposure develop sulfate reducing bacteria like SIBO. So this like increase in bibliophilia and desulfibrio. I believe these organisms come to help us break these toxins out of the bile. So everyone says, oh, if you have these types of problems, you need to avoid eating saturated fat because it triggers bile and then you're going to feed the dysbiosis. The thing is, the bile is where the mycotoxins are stored or where they're trying to be eliminated from the body. And these microbes intelligently come along to break these bile acids down to prevent this enterohepatic recirculation loop that happens if those bile acids don't get broken down properly. So they're basically working to try to mechanically take those toxins out of those bile acids so that they can be bound to fibers or to other things inside of the gut to be removed from the body. Also very commonly seeing something like Methanobrevibacter, so this methane dominant SIBO kind of presentation, sluggish, slow motility, methane gas production, super common. I would say the number one cause that I see this in my practice is because of mold exposure. So the question then becomes, how is this adaptive, or how is this consequentially caused by this initial exposure? So one thing that if you've watched to this point, you're somewhat well versed in mold illness. Like this is too in depth for you to still be watching if you've never heard anything about mold illness before. So one thing that you've probably heard, and this is almost cliche at this point, is that you can't heal mold illness without binders, right? Everyone says it, whether it's your activated charcoal, your bentonite clay, or something like Toxiprevent, all these like ultra high tech multi combination formulas with different binders, modified citrus pectin, whatever it is. They said you can't heal mold illness without binders. binders, because the binders are the only way to get these mycotoxins out of your body. What if I were to tell you that the reason that all of these healthy people, these people that can be exposed to mold, these people that go to the gym and that has mold and they don't have a problem, or they've got like that mold along the windowsills or in the shower and they don't develop chronic health problems? What if I told you this is because they literally have a binder factory in their gut? So their beneficial gut microbes are literally constantly 24/7 reproducing, and the compounds that they produce, or the fragments, or like their corpse, so these microbes when they die, they actually work or function like a binder. So this kind of cliche is kind of right, but at the same time, the real question we should be asking is not what type of binder should we take, which one is best for which toxin. That can be helped, but what we really want to ask is, why have we lost these microbes in our gut that do this job for us? And this is a really important part of recovery, because if you want to actually become resilient again, and by resilient, I mean you could then be exposed to mold toxins again in the future and not go into like a full-blown reaction. Mold toxins are objectively toxic. Like certain mycotoxins are so toxic that they were considered for use as bioweapons. So these are not substances that we should like flirt with or consider inconsequential. Like, we should never say, yeah, I want to get so healthy I could live in a moldy building again. I'm not encouraging you to do that. That is a terrible idea. But what I am suggesting is that you should be able to get strong enough that if you walk into a supermarket that has a mold exposure, or if you go into an environment that has mold for some reason, you do have some small reaction because you've literally just been poisoned. So you would want your body to tell you, yeah, probably don't do that again. You do want that, but you don't want to go into a full-blown anaphylaxis, full-on histamine mast cell reaction. Like, that's not supposed to happen. That's an indicator that your body is still hypersensitized, because the core mechanisms that the body needs to deal with those environments are missing. So instead of being exposed and literally going right back to where you were, where you have full autoimmune flares and you're literally like you've just had mold illness again, instead we have like a little bump and then your body becomes stable again. The key to this is the microbiome, because all of these people that are getting exposed and not having a problem, it's the microbiome that's the key. It's the fact that they have these beneficial microbes in the gut that is protecting them. It's this binder factory. It's their insurance policy, protects them from any type of external toxin. We're talking about mycotoxins specifically, but this would even say be true for someone eating sushi and it has some heavy metals in that. It also serves a similar function and it will protect them. So the questions we want to be asking are, what are these microbes? Why are they missing? And how do we get them back? Whenever I look at someone's gut, so I've personally looked at probably, I doubt myself, but must have at least looked at 2,000 different stool or microbiome tests. And I see a common trend with people that have a gut dysbiosis that creates a weakness in their ability to detox, their ability for their immune system to function, and their ability for them to just be functional and healthy in general. And this is that they're missing one or more of these four core, I call these like the cornerstone microbes. So this is Lactobacillus, Bifidobacterium, Akkermansia, and Faecalibacterium. These four are really important. If you have any kind of like chronic health problem, you're dealing with any kind of gut issues, you have mold illness, and you've done a stool test, go and have a look at it right now. And I can be like 95% sure that one or more of these four are out of balance. I've looked at so many tests. I see this across the board. One of these four is going to be a problem for you. And if you're on the more severe end, like, so for me personally, having like multiple chemical and food sensitivities, chronic fatigue syndrome, like 7 autoimmune diseases, a whole bunch of different stuff going on, you're probably more like missing 3 or even 4 of these, or they're all just completely out of balance. So correcting this is going to take time. The most important things when it comes to the lactobacillus and the bifidobacterium, this is as easy as utilizing a good therapeutic strength probiotic, at least to start, and then we could layer in specific prebiotics and fermented foods. But I know fermented foods can be a bit challenging for someone potentially with histamine intolerance, or if they're very, very reactive. I actually have a step-by-step guide of how to introduce probiotics if you're very sensitive. So I'm going to link that on the screen somewhere here, or I'll put like a link, probably, I think it's in that corner, or there'll be a link in the description below. So that's a step-by-step guide to take probiotic supplements. That's going to work for your lactobacillus and your bifidobacterium. But don't go away yet, because we still need to talk about the other microbes, and we still have some other things to talk about as well. One of the things that I want to tell you before you leave is that there is one type of probiotic that we can take that literally in a very short time period does this binder factory job for us. And it's something that you can literally buy and take. It's like one of those, like almost like miracle solutions where it's a product, you take it as a pill and it works. So don't click away yet because I need to give you that one. That's a really good tip. But for the Akkermansia and the Faecalibacterium, the key tends to be dietary diversity of polyphenols, which can be a bit tricky because often there's a lot of food sensitivity involved in this. So broadly speaking, eat as much diversity as you can in the diet. If you are sensitive to certain FODMAPs, experiment and see which ones you can tolerate. Maybe you can't do onions and garlic, but maybe you can do the cruciferous vegetables. Maybe you can do some cabbage, some broccoli. Like, try to eat as much diversity as you can. When you're thinking about polyphenols, you also want to think about berries. So blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, cranberries, even something like pomegranate. Think about that like really unique taste and flavor and how like bright and vibrant the colors are. This is the trick for polyphenols, and this is the best way to help your Akkermansia and your Faecalibacteria. There's a little extra bonus that these microbes really love the red polyphenols. So cranberry, pomegranate, these tend to be the best. But overall, the key to microbiome diversity is diversity in the diet. So eat as many of these different types of polyphenols as you can. Also, the Faecalibacteria is very dependent on the bifido. So if you have low bifido, there's more likelihood that you're going to have low Faecalibacteria as well. One of the best things that you can do in that case is get the bifido to be right. And then once the bifido is right, you can get the Faecalibacteria right as well. It will really help it. And for Akkermansia, some short-term prolonged fasting or intermittent fasting as well could be really, really helpful. But that's something you have to be a bit more careful with because fasting obviously moves a lot of toxins and it's a bit stressful on the adrenals and the nervous system. So you have to be a bit more careful with that. But it is a very effective tool. So those are the most important things that we want to correct for the long term. These are the things that are going to give you a strong gut resilience that is going to basically make you immune or make you much more resilient to future exposures. And you're also going to be producing these natural binders inside of yourself. And the reason that this, for me, is the most important is I don't want you to have to take a supplement or a product forever. I want to like fix the problem so then you're strong and healthy and you can stand by yourself. But if your body is struggling and like along with the mold and so you've got some gut issues, you've got some SIBO stuff going on, that your body's struggling with detox, and maybe for some reason like you don't tolerate binders or you think they're a little bit too much for you, there is a certain species of microbe that we can use and it's actually not a bacteria. And me telling you that it's a probiotic, but it's not a bacteria, there's probably about, I'd say 40 to 50% of the people watching this video already know what it is. So give me your guess below. So it's a probiotic, it's not a bacteria, and it functions well as a binder. You've got 3 more seconds to leave me your comment below. I want to know if you get it. So the answer here is actually Saccharomyces boulardii. So this is a type of beneficial yeast. This microbe functions as a binder. It's actually one of the most effective binders. I've actually seen some studies. I don't know if I can find them because a lot of this, it's kind of annoying. Like a lot of studies are like locked behind subscriptions or like you have to be in like a university or an association to see it. So it's kind of tricky and like to reference it in a video, like I have to have access to it. So it's a bit challenging, but I have seen studies with my own eyes, even if I can't share them with you, that there are substances produced by this microbe and other microbes that are actually more effective at binding mycotoxins than traditional binders, than things like activated charcoal or clay or things like this. So this isn't just theoretical. There is some science that backs this as well. And if you think about it, it makes sense because your body is intelligent. Your microbiome is like an organ. It serves 4 essential functions. And this is why if you take a rat or a mouse and you sterilize it, so it doesn't have any gut microbes in its gut, it will die because these are not optional. These are essential things that we need to have. It's like an organ. You can't just not have it. It's essential. So Saccharomyces boulardii is like a binder factory. It's something we can take in the short term that literally will do this job so that we can start producing binders in our own gut and start escorting these mold toxins out of the body. One other thing about specifically Saccharomyces boulardii that is a superpower, but also something that you need to be a little bit cautious with is that because it is a yeast, it can be very aggressive at killing mold that has colonized the body. So if you have candida or if you have any types of yeasts or molds that are living inside of the gut, when you start introducing this probiotic yeast, they can fight a lot. You can get a lot of sort of like competition for space and for resources, and you can get die-off. So yes, it can provide a binder effect, but as with all probiotics, you need to make sure you bring these things in really, really slowly. There is also a very small subset of people. So this would be more like people that have been exposed to mold for like 5+ years, like myself, that the body becomes so sensitized to external yeast and fungus that the immune system just panics anytime it sees something fungal, whether it's beneficial or not. So this could be like you become reactive even to things like mushrooms, even nutritional yeast, and like a probiotic that's yeast-based, like Saccharomyces boulardii. So if your body is giving you a clear no that this is not the right thing for you, then that's not something to push through because you might be one of these more sensitive people. But this is a very small minority in my experience, let's say like roughly 5 to 10%. And the likelihood that that's you increases if your exposure was more prolonged. So like 5 years plus, it's more likely to be you. If your exposure was less than 2 years, it's very unlikely that you'll have that problem, but it is possible. So just be cautious. So this is why previously anyone, if you've potentially watched any of my previous videos, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of binders. I do think they have a place. I do think they can be really helpful, but we don't want to just be using these kind of band-aid solutions. We want to really fix the underlying problem, which is that a lot of these mold compounds, these mycotoxins are antibiotic and they devastate and they completely disrupt the microbiome. So we need to make sure that we work on restoring a healthy microbiome, because not only is that an important, let's say even essential part of detoxing those mold toxins that you've been exposed to, but it's also your insurance policy for resilience that's going to protect you from any future exposures that you might have. And very interestingly, also makes a lot of sense why many people that develop the more complex chronic health problems as a consequence of mold exposure are often on a course of antibiotics, living in the moldy environment before these increase in symptoms are experienced. So I was already having a lot of symptoms living in the mold. I took a course of antibiotics for SIBO. The SIBO was caused by the mold. So I disabled that protective mechanism when my body was trying to adapt. And that's when my like mild, let's say like moderate constipation and like some little bit of like food sensitivities and some anxiety and depression became full-blown chronic fatigue syndrome, multiple chemical and food sensitivities, 10-day, absolutely devastating constipation with bulging bloody hemorrhoids and just like this absolute like nightmare situation where I became completely disabled and literally couldn't even look after myself. And I'm sure that without the support of people around me and the care that I had, I almost certainly would have died. So when you really think about this and when you have had the opportunity like I have to not just live through it, but to also now work with other people, and I hear these experiences, these anecdotes, this isn't information that's available. This isn't something you can read in a book. This isn't something that you can study by looking at papers or by going to a school. This is something that you can only learn through the lived experience of doing it and then working with other people as they go through their lived experience of doing it as well. Because mold illness and mycotoxins and this whole angle of toxins causing chronic health problems is not acknowledged by modern health, by the modern healthcare systems that are in place. You will not find the answer that you're looking for there. I learned that the hard way. A lot of my clients learned that the hard way as well. And unfortunately, this is kind of the reality of the situation. But do know that this is a solvable problem. The answer is out there. And if you keep doing your research, you keep asking the right questions, you will eventually figure it out. If you want a little bit of a speed boost and you want me to kind of shortcut you through the worst bit to get you to the promised land on the end where your life isn't a living hell, I'd be really happy to do that. Feel free to send me an email, support@williamdickinson.co.uk, and I'd love to arrange a consultation with you where I can help you figure out exactly where you're at, exactly what's going on, and exactly what we need to do to get you feeling better. That's everything from me today. Hope you found this really interesting and helpful. Let me know what you learned in a comment below, and I will see you in the next video. So take care and bye-bye.